hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on a gorgeous Saturday afternoon. I snagged you. My next two guests are supposed to be working around the yard, picking weeds and doing honeydew lists, but instead they're here with you and I. Before we get talking about them, I want to let my friends at 5 Star Guitar know how much I appreciate the support. They have been sponsoring this show for the last month or two, and they offer so many different varieties of guitars. They've got lessons, they've got repairs. If you're looking for pro lessons from people like Jennifer Batten, hit 5starguitars.com and sign up for virtual lessons or in-store lessons with her. She's not available this weekend because she is doing the Guitar Cloud Symposium with 3 of the other greatest guitarists in the world, besides my next guest. And so if you go to the Guitar Cloud Symposium, I think you can still sign up for the last 2 days of her symposium, guitarcloudsymposium.com. But make sure that you order 5starguitars.com guitars, because I know you have a huge fat stimulus check sitting in your pocket, and Oregon has no sales tax. They're based here in Beaverton, Oregon. So you can get all those great guitars down there in Los Angeles or Germany or wherever you're at and save a bunch of money because they have no sales tax. So 5starguitars.com. Thank you for your support. And now, one of my favorite people on the planet is one member of this duet. And I got this record last year from a new project that he has with his pal, Sean Halley. And I have to say that Poptosis may be the greatest record that came out in 2019. It is, and I'm telling you this, if you're on the road this week and you're looking for a road trip record, Poptosis is by far the greatest road trip album you're going to find. Now, with no further ado, I want to introduce my friend Nate Morton and Sean Halley. Thanks, guys, for being here.
Kevin, it is my pleasure, as always.
That was
I should also say, by the way,
yes.
My hands are yellow because I literally was just out pulling weeds in the yard.
Good man.
So I actually was. That's from the gloves. So
okay,
I ran right in.
You've earned this time then to hang out with us, and
Exactly.
I appreciate that. You know, I talked a little bit about the Poptosis record, and I want to get into that in a second. But I was trying to explain last night to Glenn Sobel what this band is all about. We were talking about great records and some of the guests that I have coming up on the show. And he's a huge fan of you, of course, Nate, and we talked about how different this album is. Now, if you get it on one of the streaming platforms like, iTunes or Spotify, it's classified as a jazz record. And there are jazz elements all over the place, but it's so much more, man. There's funk, there's pop, there's bluegrass kind of vibe going on in some parts. You've certainly got progressive rock going on and progressive jazz. So how do you guys describe this when you're telling somebody about the Fraud Prophets record?
Nate.
Shawne, I'll let you take it.
Well, okay.
What was the term you came up with? Because I think the thing is that we were, we started out, both of us playing, like you do in college, where you learn everything you possibly can. And so that means there's a lot of jazz study.
Right.
But we both became click guys and became people that played songs and parts for songs and that kind of stuff. So even though the record has all of these elements to it that are certainly improvisational, there's tons of solos and there's fun playing all over the place, but it was put together kind of more like a pop record. So I think we called it
I feel like was it mainstream rock jazz fusion? Something along those lines?
Something like that. I think it kind of works. I mean, it's like the Scorpions meets Cecil Taylor. I don't know.
It features solos, and like Sean said, it features, getting to sort of play out, but at the same time always remains singable and melody driven.
Yeah.
Even the solos, quite frankly.
Full of
yeah.
It really
parts. I mean, it's like the coolest thing. I think one of the things I love about it is that you can hear Nate when he's playing humming to himself and thinking about how to fit things around melodic elements and stuff like that. And I think that's why it works in a lot of ways, because it really does sound like there's more guys than just 2 guys that made it.
It certainly does. I'm glad you reminded me that when I was trying to explain it to Glenn, because he said, "Are there vocals?" And I said, "No, but there are." Nate gets credit, right, for having the vocal part of the record.
No, that's not something you want to hear.
That was a John Bonham trick, right? The mic close enough to hear Bonham like.
Interesting.
You can hear Nate mumble. If you were to turn the overheads up enough, you could hear.
Yeah.
Well, I have to give Shawne the lion's share of the credit, because for the most part, the record started because he and I were basically just playing ideas off of one another. And then essentially he went away and fleshed those ideas out in every way possible into the end result of what the songs really are. So I have to give all credit to my partner, Shawne, over there.
Well, it was fun in a way. I think what was fun about it, I think, in terms of the way it came together, and I think that you mentioned this, that it feels different than a lot of other records. And I think one of the reasons is because we started out just jamming ideas. And then I went home and took those ideas, and some of them we used as is. For instance, the country tune, the Barn Burner, if you played the scratch tracks right up against the final tracks, they would line up, like the form was complete by the time we just were done jamming it out. But a lot of them, we sort of said, okay, cool, we'll take this piece and we'll graft this piece onto it and that kind of piece. But they were all played improvisational pieces that got sort of shuffled together. And then I sort of went through and rewrote things and rearranged things. And then Nate came back in, played drums over the scratches, and then I laid all the real stuff over top of the drums. So there were opportunities to interact that way, because you had interaction in the writing and then the improvisational element of putting it together. But then you had the fact that because we sort of knew what were on the tape already, we could sort of play around with interacting with some parts and things. So it does feel pretty live in places, even though it's not.
It really does. Yeah.
I'll just interject this last little note. So Shawne, you know this about me. Kevin, I'm not sure if we've talked about this or not, but one of the bands that I'm a huge fan of is this band called OK Go. I'm a huge OK Go fan.
Greatest videos, right?
Amazing videos.
Yeah.
And I think because the videos are so amazing, I think that sometimes the songwriting from that band actually gets overlooked, because the songwriting is really good. The videos are out of this world. The videos are on it. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, which is that when I watch that band, one of the things that I most enjoy about that band is I can just imagine like the brainstorming sessions that would go on in that band. Yeah. And I could just imagine like, what would it be like to be in a room where nothing you say is too crazy? Like nothing you say, like, I know, let's do a whole video that's like a one shot with a drone. We're going to have hundreds of members with umbrellas, and that's how we're going to create this flip book in the middle of this giant. So I guess my point is that working with Shawne on this record is the closest that I've ever been to that, because as we all three know, as longtime side guys, a lot of the time you're told that's too funky, or that's too rock, or no, you're playing it too fast, or why would you go into reggae there, or whatever, play it like the record. So we dealt with that our whole lives. So this was a great experience for me. I hope Shawne feels the same, where pretty much nothing Shawne played would I go, nah, can you do something else? And conversely, I was granted that same amount of leeway. And it was like, all right, you put it up, you pick it up, I'll put it down, you pick it up. And it was that kind of thing. So anyway, that's all,
No, and I completely agree. And sometimes it caused laughter.
Yeah. And there's plenty of it on the record too.
More than once. The very first tune on the record is, I think I just said that, and that's the very first tune that we played that night, that we just started jamming around. And we got done with the first bit. So we felt like, okay, cool, we got done with it. And so the idea was we had the click running the whole time. Okay. We never stopped the click. It was just running, and we were just playing ideas to it. And we got done with it, and I started into that swing feel on the second thing. And I think Nate's like, really? Really? And it was like, fine, cool. And he went and he brought into it, and he came in to the riff the same way that he did on the record. So we left it the same. I mean, so it's, sometimes it caused hilarity. Sometimes we laughed a lot.
Part of the record is driven. Part of the record comes from this place of almost like a dare. Yeah. In other words, like, okay, oh, really? Like, for example, you mentioned the bluegrass influence tune. That's Eat a Frog. I literally looked at Shawne and I went, oh, well, what if I played a fast train group? What would you do? Yeah. It was very much like that. It was very much like a dare.
Yeah.
This doesn't come from guys that just meet. I mean, you guys have obviously done some playing together before, right?
We've known each other. We met making Michael Thompson's MT Speaks record.
Okay.
That would have been 16 years ago, 15 years ago, something like that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that relationship's developed.
Yeah. Basically, Nate was going to play drums on it because I think you were playing with Jav. I think you were playing with Javier at the time. And I think that's where Michael saw you. And he's like, I saw this guy, Nate. Let's just kill him. Let's bring him over. And so Nate shows up to my living room to track drums for Michael's record. And Michael, as usual, was 2.5 hours late to the tracking session. So Nate and I had 2.5 hours to hang out. And while he's setting up drums, we're talking. It's like, oh yeah, well, you know, when I lived in Blacksburg, I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, I lived in Blacksburg. I'm like, I lived in Blacksburg. Who lives in Blacksburg, Virginia? And he goes, oh, my dad taught at BPI. I'm like, my dad taught at BPI. Like, how?
Wait, are you kidding me?
No, deadly serious. So it was, we had a very similar childhood in some ways.
Okay.
So,
The
but
funny thing,
Yeah.
sorry, you go ahead. Sorry.
no, that was it.
You had the same mother.
We discovered that we were making the same movie references. He was making jokes about comedy lines from things, and I was responding to him with whatever the newest comedy line was. So it was pretty funny. It was instantly simpatico. Definitely, always has been from the very.
Shawne and I have known each other for ages,
Yep.
and we've worked together on a variety of things. Like, in other words, maybe Shawne is recording some songs, so I've gone and I've recorded drums, or maybe Shawne is, you know, producing or engineering a record for someone, so I've gone and I've played drums with that. This was the first time that we actually collaborated, like as like a band to create a project. And it was definitely, for me anyway, I don't know if you feel this way, Shawne, or not, but for me, it was definitely like, why did it take us so long for us to do this?
Totally.
Like, we've known each other for a million years. We've had so many things in common for so long. Why is it after, you know, 14 or 15 some odd years, we're only just now doing this? So,
and we basically,
it was really cool.
Yeah, and I completely agree. It was funny because it wasn't like pulling teeth. What was pulling teeth was me letting go of it, because it was the first thing I've ever released under my own steam, you know, in terms of Nate's released other records before,
Yeah.
but I never really have. So it was really difficult to let go of it and sort of say, you're done.
Yeah.
But all the time up until that point, it was fast. Like, it just, you know, we wrote half the record basically in one night, and then a year later wrote the other half of the record. And
Can I snatch? I'm gonna snatch some credit. I'm gonna grab some credit for myself here for a moment. And Kev, no, not a lot. Just a little. I want to grab a little bit of credit for Kevin. Believe me when I say this, and Shawne's gonna laugh when I say this because he knows that it's the truth. I'm gonna grab some credit for being a little bit of a bully. And here's what I mean. Shawne's not his head. There was one NAMM show where I basically yelled at Shawne. And I essentially said, it was several years back, and I essentially said, can I say a bad word? You're a bleeping genius. And it's a real shame that no one else knows that but me.
Right.
And so that can't go on. So something has to happen so that some people or other people get to realize how talented you are. Essentially I browbeat Shawne into doing this.
And it was a back hallway upstairs in NAMM.
Oh yeah, I think
we just played a tune behind Colby Calais or something.
Oh, that's right.
Wait,
that's
I
right.
was Nate. I talked to you outside upstairs.
Yeah,
that show.
So it was the other side of the room. He was yelling at me.
Oh my God, man! But I didn't get to see you play that gig. But
yelling as friends yell at friends.
Yeah.
Yelling as brothers yell at brothers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like that. So.
I think it's funny that, you know, the only way for the rest of the world to get to know the genius that is Sean Halley is if you have a hard copy or digital copy of something that Nate can brag on. So instead of just saying, oh, you have to meet genius, he has to say, meet genius on this performance that we did together, right? Otherwise, it's just going to be Nate talking. So I love the fact that you made this happen. And I'm going to ruin this for a second. I was just thinking about, you guys knew each other 15, 16 years ago and had all these other experiences. And if you equate the relationship part of this, you know, and I hate to go there, you're both happily married, but the courting process of 15 or 16 years, right? Where you guys got to know each other and your friends, and you did projects together, you dated together without dating, you know, and you realized that there's a lot in common that you guys really connect with. And then you thought, should we go to the next level, right? Should we take it to this next phase? And you said, you know, why didn't we do this earlier, right? I mean, that's like, I can imagine this couple thinking, man, you know, we had 15, 16 years that we really could have developed a romantic relationship, but it worked. And some of those things couldn't, right? In a romantic relationship, the friendships might be ruined, right? Because you realize, oh shoot, you know what? The sex wasn't as good as I thought it might be. Or, you know, in your case, right? I mean, like, you know, Shawne, you start playing like this jazz riff and Nate is just like, wow, you know what? I just don't see it that way. Yeah. You know, so it is and it's you know, it really is magic that kind of happened that way, and something in the stars, something in the water in Blacksburg, right? That you know, probably propensed it was a foreshadowing of what was to come, you know. But
well, it is definitely. I mean, I say that I wish that we had done it earlier, but at the same time, you know, it's like anything in life; things happen along a certain linear timeline. And as you pointed out, I mean, had we attempted something earlier, maybe it wouldn't have been the same result. Maybe things that we learned in those 15 years ultimately led to what you know, what Poptosis is, you know. So
I think we would have done it. I think it would have been different. I think if we'd done it right after I moved to LA in '99,
okay,
where I had been doing just commercial sessions. So my whole life for the 2 or 3 years before that was literally just Nashville kind of schedule. It's like, okay, today is the Today Show, and tomorrow is, you know, NFL Live, and, you know, Wednesday is Monday Night Football or whatever, all this guitar stuff. We probably would have done it very differently. We would have done it. We would have written all the tunes. We would have played it. You know, we would have sort of like gotten a band together. It would have been very traditional, and it would have been great, but it would have been very different. It would have. Sure. It would have had a much more sort of normal and traditional, probably.
Shawne,
yes.
Could I make the argument? Now, see, I sound like I'm backtracking on what I said earlier, but could I make the argument that it's the result of us having known each other so well and the relationship that we built over the course of those years? Because if we had done something back in the day, you know, before we had over a decade and a half of experience hanging out with each other and shared experiences, of which we have many, like you said, I guess it would have been a different record. So maybe, maybe it just it needed to percolate.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that I think is really good about us is that we're basically brothers. So if someone says something they don't like or they don't agree with or they don't whatever, it's like it's completely fine to there's no feeling like you're not allowed to express yourself and be truthful and whatever. So it was if we had done it right when we met, it would have been different. It would have been like we had just met, and our dynamic would have been very different, and it would have been much more sort of it wouldn't have been anywhere near as connected, I guess.
Yeah,
sure.
You know, the spontaneity is really special, right? Because a lot of spontaneous improvisational kind of thing depends on respect, you know, and with musicians, and the intuition kind of comes from, you know, like trust, you know, with your other musician, right? That one guy's going to hold his end and not let the other person down.
Sure. It's like those team building exercises where someone stands behind the other and the other just lets themselves fall backwards, and you catch them. You catch them or you don't.
Exactly. I'm thinking more of like stage diving, but that's cool. You know, that
works as well. I feel like we should talk a little bit and share. And Shawne, I'll let you take the stage. A little bit more like sort of musically what someone's in store for if they were to check this record out. Like how would you, like Shawne, what would you say? If you like this and you like that, then you might dig the Poptosis record. What would you say?
Jesus. I mean, part of the problem with that is that
the list would be too long.
Well, the list would be it would change depending on the tune. That's the problem.
It totally would.
The thing that makes the records really odd is that it really does. I mean, it starts with this sort of, you know, 70s fusion funk kind of thing with the New Orleans funk thing in the middle, and it's got a Beach Boys section that we actually, you know, the bit with the organ right before the recapitulation is basically our like
the recapitulation. What?
Sorry. Wait, no, Nate, you know
that. Haven't you learned not to use those big words around me?
Sorry, I apologize. I've been saying it.
The recapitulation that happens on all of the records that you do, Nate, is it's special just to you and you alone.
No,
we had this section where we wanted, you know, Nate started playing this really great pocket kind of thing. It was supposed to be a drum solo, but he started playing time instead.
Because I have no chops.
Oh, sorry.
What's my version of a drum solo? Yeah. What are you talking about? Nate, drum solo.
But it's funny because it was one of those things where it's like, well, you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of So What You Want by the Beasties. So we should do an organ thing and do like a funk thing and like, you know. Yeah. So if we ever played it live, we'd probably have to have Nate rap over it.
Well, okay, so let's say you were going to just do a gig live at the Mint in LA, and when no, don't get all sad about this. That's what this is all about. Nate, my intention was that I guess when I started doing the show, it's an opportunity because we're not all, you're working. When all the touring stopped And I was getting to hang out at home, missing all of my buddies and seeing the updates that, oh yeah, that tour was canceled, the show's canceled. I still wanted to be able to go backstage and hang out with my buddies. That's what we're doing right now. And so I love that I can invite people backstage, hanging out and talk about old times, ridiculous relationships, the, development of the records, whatever kind of stuff. And so we don't have to be bummed about what didn't happen at the Mint. This is kind of a replacement, I'm saying, because I want people that would have been there. The Mint isn't huge. It only holds a couple hundred, right? So I want this to last for a while and have people realize, okay, when the pandemic clears, when we've got a vaccine and people are out there playing these shows, we know a little bit more about what to expect. Because I was picturing, which one of you guys booked the gig at the Mint?
That was Shawne.
Okay. So Sean, when you walked in, you had a relationship with somebody there that was doing the booking, right?
Well, we had my trio played there in 2014. I've only played there once, so
okay.
My trio played there in 2014. I still had the email, so I replied all to the old email, and one of the guys still worked there, basically. So
okay. So how'd you pitch it?
I basically just said we had a lot of good reviews, because at that point the record was when I started talking, the record was still new. So we had a lot of recent reviews and some good press and some good things. And I sent some press clippings and a copy of the record to them, and they really dug it. And they put it, they put us on a bill with a bunch of other sort of similar minded people. And it would have been great, but
it will be.
Yeah, it will.
I was trying to imagine what you were saying to them to try and explain. All right, so this is what. Okay, I know we haven't had any shows yet, and we can't really fit into a particular niche, right? So we're not going to go well with like the Silver Lake shoegazing indie band kind of crowd, and we're certainly not going to be there for a metal night necessarily. But yeah, I'm going to jump in on a little bit, Nate. I mean, you asked Sean to explain, like, if you like this, then you might like Poptosis. And there are so many different references, and none of them sound like any one particular band or artist. I hear a tiny bit of Jeff Beck in some stuff. I hear, from your side of things, Nate, I mean, I know a lot of your influences, and I can hear drum influences, but stylistically, the music, I hear kind of like Fishbone, Living Color vibe in there, and if you like Living Color, if you like Fishbone, if you like Jeff Beck, if you like melodic stuff, even stuff that Sting might put out, and is more, I think commercialized stuff, because there's so many hooks. There's so many hooks throughout the record, and the references to those, and
I've already just mentioned two or three people that we both love to death. So
yeah, well, I know Nate's Fishbone thing, for sure. And
I grew up on Tootsie Soul and ceramics and stuff.
I guess I would say, and I guess if I turn my own question a little bit sideways, rather than necessarily pointing to bands that influenced it, I would rather point to maybe sort of threads of commonality throughout the whole record. Sure. So, for example, even though there are solos, even though there are stylistic changes, and there are a list of eclectic influences, it's always a toe tapper. You can tap your foot all the way through the whole record, every song on the whole record.
Right.
And every song on the whole record features melodies. There's no, what's the word? This is going to sound like a weird way to use this word, I think, but there's no exhibitionism. Right. There's nothing there for the sake of it being there. Hey, sure. I know, let's do this thing that modulates between 13, 7, and 5 because we can, to show people that we know how to play 13, 7, and 5. Okay, you tap your toe to it? No.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could, that would be a thing. That would be something to listen to. But if you can't, there's nothing on there for the sake of sake.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it was sort of like we like playing a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
So there's funk on there. There's a barn burner. There's a almost Americana sort of John Abercrombie meets Bill Frisell sort of thing, only more New Orleans-y. There's a heavy rock tune on there. There's a couple of 60s sounding pop tunes. There's a very much sort of ECM kind of jazz tune, for lack of a better term, like that Bob.
I'm distracted now, Sean, because you said Abercrombie, John Abercrombie, and Frizzell, and now I can't get Abercrombie and Frizz out of my head.
You know, well,
I had girls that like Abercrombie and Frizzell. See, that AAA song doesn't work anymore.
You know, I would imagine, you know, whenever you've got to express your passion, your art, you know, and you're trying to get this commercialized, because there's such a commercial element to your record that's so different than experimental, improvisational, jazz, fusion, rock, that it could fit on rock radio. You know, I mean, the instrumental part of things, you know, there's certain element that that limit you without vocals, right? I mean, that's you know, it limits what venues you're going to play, what
Sure.
crowd is going to be appreciative. But like I said, when I was talking to Glenn last night about it, I said, every song on it's great. If you were to ask me every week what my favorite song on the record was, it would change. You know, it's so mood based for me. But when I take road trips, it's incredible, man. I mean, I drove to Canada just before the pandemic and had it all the way up and all the way back, and you can get lost in it, you know. And not just as a musician, but the songs are so great and they take you on a journey. And, you know, I mean, the songs are that way. The Climb blows my mind. It's incredible. Moths and Mosquitoes and Phlebotomist, you know, I mean, like all of those have such depth and real, I love the dynamic elements. I love where it goes. And so from that time, you mentioned that you did one session and then you took 6 months off and you did the final second half of the record 6 months later, right?
Yep.
So, but the record's been out a little over a year.
Yep.
So between that time and now, besides preparing for, you know, maybe some shows, have you guys written a bunch of new music together?
We have not had a chance, actually. There's been a lot of life changes since the record came out. So I took a year or you know, a number of months off work to finish it, to get some stuff done, because it just at that point in my day gig, I wasn't really enjoying what was going on, and I was working 20 hours a day, and I had a team in Taiwan and a team in Germany, and I was not sleeping, and it just seemed like it's going to take another 8 months to finish this record if I don't just stop and concentrate on it and finish it, and I didn't want to leave Nate hanging that long, so we sort of did it. But there's been a lot of changes. I've moved once or twice since then, and I'm on 2 different gigs away, and Nate's been sort of busy as hell and doing the show, which is all encompassing.
That's weird. Just Nate's never busy. I don't know why.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. And he has like 13 children. So it's like, you know, so he's got, you know, but the reality is that we haven't had a chance to write anything new. But I think in a way, I don't know, Nate, if you would agree, but we really enjoyed the result of the weird way that we started it. Yeah. And so I suppose, I mean, it would be very easy for me. I mean, so I spent a long time as a commercial composer. So writing for me is really, really quickly. If you're working in commercial work, you just have to. Yeah. You can't take forever and be precious about it. So I write really quickly. So technically, if we needed a record in a month or whatever, it'd be really easy for me to sit down and write 10 or 12 tunes, and then we would get together and play them. But that's not how we did it the last time. And I think it's really a unique record because of the way we did it. And I don't know how you feel, Nate, but it feels like the next one we'd want to do something similar and sort of, you know, it turned out odd enough that and cool enough that we want to try to recreate it.
It's that kind of thing where, I mean, we're not attempting to be pop artists, and so no part of us is living in like that 18-month record cycle timeline, you know. And it's that thing where, how often does an artist or a band release their first record and it's great? And I'm not saying our record is great, but I'm saying, you know, an artist releases a record and it's great, or a comedian, for example, does their first hour-long special on TV and it's hilarious. Yeah. And then the follow-up comes 12 months, 18 months later, and it's such a letdown. And a lot of that, to me, is because, well, you just spent your lifetime creating that first project, and then in 12 to 18 months, you're ready. You're supposed to kick out another one.
The sophomore slump.
Right. And so I feel like when Shawne and I, like, it's, you know, I think it was Seal. I think there were about 3 years between Seal's debut record and the follow-up. And in some interview, it was kind of like, well, it took you a long time to come up with the follow-up, 3 years later, this follow-up. And I think it said something along the lines of, that's how long it took me to write another good record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not going to try to live within that. So I say all that to say, Shawne and I should definitely begin the process again, but it definitely is a process and definitely has to be sort of done according to the way that process works with the two of us. You know what I mean?
You're right. And it's not predetermined by anybody else. The only reason I even asked is that I wondered how things would evolve musically, having done what we
and so
did.
do we. And
yeah,
so
right.
do we. I mean, and believe me, this is not as well, unless I'm so upset, Shawne, that he refuses to work with me anymore. But this is not the last, Nate and Shawne release. This is not the last time you've heard from FRAUDPROPHETS. Although I will admit this, as long as we're on sort of the relationship metaphor, and this is not the relationship with Shawne and I. We're gonna be brothers forever and ever and ever and ever.
We'll be old dudes.
Yeah,
exactly. But we'll be in the musicians' old folks' home together. But I have to admit that gig not happening, like that felt like this is going to be like a launch pad, and not like a launch pad to superstardom.
sure.
Just a launch pad into like another phase of Shawne and I and us working together, and we're going to do this band. It's going to be great. We're going to play some gigs. And so there's an extent to where months later now, I'm still recovering from that. That would have been our first gig. That would have been our first gig ever.
Not just as FRAUDPROPHETS, but
no,
but
that would have been
you two have never been on stage before together.
You know what? I think that we have. Well, the church gig.
Oh, we played church gigs together.
Okay.
So
we played a casual recently.
You played what?
Right.
We played casual recently, and then we also for Nate's first record that he released, the Duty Bug record. I don't know if you have the Duty Bug record.
I got Duty Bug. I got Duty Bug. Playground
so
Philosophy.
I'm the other half for Duty Bug. So I did the other record with. I did that record with him. So all
that's
that
you
stuff,
on Playground Philosophy.
Actually, Playground Philosophy is the only tune I didn't play on.
Oh,
but everything else, I did all the bass, all the guitar.
Well, no, but I mean that's the album title, right?
Oh,
yeah. So,
I mixed it and sort of like fleshed it and played a lot of the instruments and that kind of. But anyway, so we actually did prepare a Duty Bug gig, and then something happened. I think I had to travel for work, and so you guys did it without me. But anyway, so. Yeah, I
didn't realize the Duty Bug even had a gig. I didn't realize that ever.
There was a Duty Bug gig. There was.
It was very short-lived. That was a very short-lived project.
That was right when you and I first met. Well, when we first hung, when that record came out.
Around Rockstar days.
Yep. Yeah. I think at that point too, that record was so eclectic, because there was humor. It reminded me like you could combine. There was some Fishbone again, but you had. Mr. Bungle kind of comedic type stuff, and like what's the sweet song? Everything.
All Dessert Diet?
The last All Dessert Diet's amazing.
That's right. Yeah.
But also your what's the block? Writer's block? This is one of my,
I've got a mental block happening all day today too. But
he's referring to the song Writer's Block.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. God, sorry.
The last tune, which is just makes me laugh. I don't know. Nate's one of the funniest people I know. And
it's me too. And he said the same thing about you. So I think in this time, the crazy pandemic time, Nate, when you and I just catch up, whether we're doing this thing on the little podcast or we're talking, it's a little shot in the arm. And it's great to be able to talk to somebody that's humorous and positive as best you can, because you need a little bit of that like battery charge to get out there and sort of fight the world, but I think those records help, really. There's a lot of humor, but there's some seriousness in your record too. The Duty Bug record and the Poptosis record both have so much substance, and really if you just broke it down song by song and listen to all the elements, there's so much going on there. And I love that on the Poptosis record you guys get to a point where there might be a natural sort of resolution to a song, but you just keep fucking around with it and then start cracking up and you end up in a pool of laughter, right? So I imagine that most of it felt like kind of a rehearsal that just turned into something that you hit record and stop, and doesn't sound like an accident. Well, actually it does sound like an accident, but a happy accident, there's a lot of.
Yeah, there's a good, I think it must have been, and it must have been pervasive, meaning that people that helped play on it got it. So Oz Noise on a tune, Janae Fleener, who we call the Fiddle Ninja, who's Nashville stalwart. she's the one that says ribbit at the end.
Oh,
frog.
yeah.
But it's like she must have thought, yeah, that's totally cool. That totally works. And of course I'm going to leave it. It's amazing.
Right. Who's playing sax on the record?
That's Bob Reynolds from Snarky Puppy.
Oh
Bob
my
Reynolds,
God.
Yeah,
So badass.
See,
Wow.
Yeah, he's so good.
You know what? I mean, Snarky Puppy, there's Snarky Puppy vibe in the record too, and there's all sorts of that too. The depth of the tracks, but still the melodic element. And I'm not surprised at all that you're connected to them somehow. You've got to be fans of the band. And
oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, Mark Lettieri, the guitar player, is a buddy of mine.
Okay.
Nate I think you played with Bob on the Bonnie Hunt show, didn't you? That's how you know.
Correct.
Oh, he was on the, okay. Interesting.
Yes.
What was your formal education musically, Shawne?
I went to, let's see here. I had a full ride guitar scholarship to Texas Tech University for a year.
Okay.
And I managed to figure out how not to play guitar for a year while being in school. I quit playing as much as possible so I could just work on the brain stuff.
Yeah.
So I basically had horrible technique when I came back to Utah after the first year, but my brain was wide open and I was thinking about things differently, and I had 16 uses for superloquian and work, So I went to music school. I finished up at Utah State.
Okay. Which is known throughout the world for musical proficiency.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It was one of those things where I came back for Christmas or something, or came back for spring break, and two of my friends at the time were like, "Dude, you should move back to Utah, man. We're gonna start a band. We're gonna tour. It's gonna be awesome." I'm like, no problem. So I moved back, and every single person that I knew, except for one, flunked out of school.
Oh, yeah.
In the first quarter, every single, it's like, "Yeah, sorry, bro, couldn't make it." Everyone left.
That's so what happens.
Yeah, thanks, you dickheads. Not well known. But anyway, so I basically went to, I started playing late. So unlike Nate, who was a child prodigy on all sorts of instruments, I started playing late. I started when I was 15. Got a scholarship to college when I was 18, and that was how it started. So I was in school for a while, basically played tons of cover gigs. So at one point, I think in the late 90s, mid 90s, I was playing 290 gigs a year, plus sessions. So that burned me out on listening to music ever again.
Yeah, I bet. No more brick house.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where I think musically for me, someone heard some recordings I did for myself and said, "Hey, you should do some recordings for me." And I started doing that kind of thing. And then 3 or 4 years later, I was opening up a room, and I actually had a studio, and someone heard some stuff I did there and said, "Hey, you should write some film music for the studio that I work at." And then I started writing for Warner Chappell and did a lot of film trailers during the trailer boom and a lot of commercial stuff. So it was I just fell into everything, really.
You were in Utah when that was happening?
I was in Utah for a long time. Yeah, I moved to LA in 99.
Okay. That, because I remember you said some things about some of the TV commercial stuff that you were doing from sports tracks. And so when those gigs come along, that's so different, right? When writing for commercial music, oftentimes it's word of mouth, right? When you get the gig, it's like knowing somebody in the industry that can make that recommendation. So where were you getting your contacts from?
Well, basically I started out as a session guitar player there. So I was like one of the top 3 or 4 guys in the state for commercial sessions. Okay. And then basically people were like, "Oh, well, he plays great and knows all these different styles and is accurate in all these different genres. So maybe we'll have him start writing." And that's sort of how it happened. So it is definitely, as Nate knows, it's all word of mouth. It is, it is relationships, it's bedside manner. I know for a fact that I started doing sessions and I was busy immediately because I had new jokes and it smelled good.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a submarine, right?
Yeah.
So you want to know that you can try, like you were talking about earlier about trusting somebody, the stage diving or whatever, an orchestral session could be $4,000 an hour, right? In terms of all the musicians and all the engineers and all the other stuff. So everybody that's in that room, you need to trust them that they're not going to be a weak link. Kind of right. Thing. So once you get that trust, it becomes easier to move into other trustworthy areas, I guess.
So how did that connection then lead you two together?
Well, it was interesting. It was another tech thing. So I'm a heavy tech head as well as being a musician. That's one of the weird things about me, I guess.
Shawne is known in our circles as tech support to the world.
Oh, That's right.
So listen. So you've given me an opportunity to tell this story, and Shawne already knows exactly what I'm going to say. So Shawne and I were hanging out one day, and like literally, the phone could ring. Right, phone rings, and it's like, hello. Oh, like this is Shawne, by the way. So I'm Shawne, right? So you're me listening to this conversation take place. Hello? Yeah. Oh, hi, Ma. Yeah. Oh, what's broken? The washing machine. Okay. Is it the Kenmore XLR or the Kenmore XLD? Right. So when you look at the background, there are two screws there. Or there what? There's one, right? Right. So do that. Like literally that.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
He knows. And I always tell Shawne is first because I constantly call him with questions about everything under the sun. I basically said, it's your fault. I said, it's your fault because if you want me to stop asking questions, stop knowing the answers. Stop knowing the answers every time I call, but every time you know another answer, it's like, okay, I'm going to keep on calling you, dude.
You blew it though, because anybody that knows Shawne now is always going to be calling Shawne. And Shawne's
anyone that knows Shawne already is.
Yeah. Well, that's why he's out there pulling weeds to get away from all that. Yeah. I get it. I don't have nearly the academic sense or the handy sense, but I seem to be the recipient of most of those calls. But it's usually, my relationship is failing. Can you please put me, So all of a sudden,
again, like this is I'm making fun of Shawne because I love him so much, but it's also funny because it's true. But like Shawne will sometimes like Dennis Miller me. Like he'll make a reference that's so obscure, but he makes it like everybody knows that. Sure. So in the middle of a conversation, someone will tell a story or someone will be recounting an incident and Shawne will go like, yeah, like the Byzantine Empire in the 1300s. And you're like, what do you mean?
It's in the back Googling each time.
Totally. So one time we were hanging up. I'm so sorry. I'm going to shut up. I promise I'm going to shut up.
That's good.
So one time, Shawne and I, right, Shawne, myself, and another friend of mine named Paul, who's a tennis coach, we were going to hang out together. We were going to do a band together. And I figured if I got there first or whatever, but I was talking to Paul before Shawne got there. And I basically said, Paul, let me warn you, it's only a matter of time once Shawne gets here until he makes some reference to something that neither of us know absolutely anything about. And literally it happened within like 2.5 minutes of Shawne walking in the door. And I just looked at Paul like, told you.
I feel so bad about it. What's really funny is that I moved to town and I had my buddy Jimmy Robinson was in the truck for Band of Gypsy. Okay. So he was working for Eddie Kramer. So like he gave me this list of names when I moved out here. And it's like, I had all these great guys, list, whatever. So the first guy I called was Paul Geary, the drummer from the Knack. Remember? Okay.
Well, originally from Extreme, right now he's like the huge music manager.
Oh, no, sorry. No, I used the wrong name. The original drummer from the Knack.
Yeah, the one who passed away.
Yes,
right?
the one who passed away.
Yeah.
Something, I think it's something Geary. It's not the Extreme.
Okay. Right, yeah.
And he was a session guy anyway. So I called him up and I said, hey, my name's Sean Halley. I just moved to town. Jimmy Robinson told me to give you a call. Thought maybe you could give me some advice. And he chewed my ass out for almost 40 minutes. He basically just yelled at me for 40 minutes, like, what the hell are you doing? And you bastard, and I'm worth $1,000 a day, and then what another person moving to town, and you dickhead. I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
I never called another name on the list.
Oh man.
I never did. Never called. I was honest, like myself. And so like Michael Thompson was one of the guys that I always wanted to meet because I loved all the stuff he did on, what was the band that he did with Stewart? Animal Logic.
Yeah,
so
Stuart Copeland, yeah.
Always loved the all the stuff he did on Animal Logic. And so I always wanted to meet him. I always wanted to meet Landau. I always wanted to meet all these guys. I wanted to meet, I love Simon Phillips. I wanted to meet all these people. And what's bizarre is that I met all those guys and became friends with them as the tech guy.
Oh, okay.
So the reason that I started working on Michael's record was because I was his Pro Tools recording tech.
Okay.
And one day he's on the phone with Mutt Lang, and I was noodling on one of his guitars or whatever. And he said, Mutt, I'm gonna have to call you back. My tech just played something. I have to ask him how he just played it.
Nice.
But it was like, so all these people that I met as a tech guy.
Yeah.
And then my musical relationship with them sort of came around. If I had, I don't have a musical relationship with everybody, but I have immediate relations with some of them. And it always came from the tech thing. So it was fortunate in a way that I became the tech guy, because I'm pretty awful at asking for money networking when it comes to asking for money and all sorts of stuff that you're supposed to do to be successful.
Yeah.
As a freelancer. I was,
Nate,
so anyway.
How are you with that, Nate?
How am I with what?
Asking for money.
He's way better.
I mean, I'm in the middle. Do you mean in terms of if someone says, "Oh, how much do you need to do this particular gig?" Or
exactly, that's it, man. I mean, that's the heart, and or if you go in with sort of the assumption they're hiring, they're asking to come and do something, and it's not like Shawne asking you to come over and lay down drums on something, but it's somebody that you've met around town, and they say, "Hey, Nate, I just need you to come in and play on a couple of tracks." And if you hadn't yet established what your rate is, but you get there and say, before we get started, do you have that conversation?
Before I get to the studio or to
it's a lot harder after you've tracked your session, right? And said, hey, since I just did 3 songs.
Well, I mean, generally speaking, people will ask, what your rate is.
Right.
Well, before that. And I've just learned to, let's put it this way. I've become, as I've gotten older, I've definitely become more at ease with discussing money, because I realize that ultimately, the more at ease you can be with that in the beginning, the better it is, in the end. Yeah. Right? If that makes sense. Yeah. And I've also come to understand that you never want to put yourself in a position where you're doing something for less than what you think you're worth to do it.
Absolutely.
And because I often find that when you put yourself in those positions, you come out the other end kind of slapping your head going, why did I commit to doing that? And most of the time people understand that. I mean, most of the time, if you say, look, I want to do this, I want to be excited about doing it, here's, what I think something like this should be financially. And that doesn't mean that, I'm worth this much. And I mean, that's not the case at all, obviously. And obviously what you ask someone who is signed to a record deal and recording something versus what you ask someone who says, I'm a full-time accountant, but I'm trying to track this song on the side are 2 different things, you know? But yeah, I guess I've just found, like I said, I've become more comfortable talking about it, because I realize that the more transparent you can be, the easier it is in the end for everybody involved. I don't know if that really answers your question.
It totally does. Yeah. I was thinking about it, knowing you well enough, Nate. I think had you not had a whole basketball team full of kids and, and sort of a mortgage to pay for, I know your love for music. And I would think that if a lot of people, if money was never an issue and you knew that you were well taken care of, if it was somebody that you liked the project, I would imagine a lot of times you would just do it for the sake of playing music that you love.
I love playing music, and it's funny because people talk about, people who do sort of more straight jobs talk about retiring. Yeah. I'm going to retire. And then once I retire, I'll go and do what I love, which is playing golf or which is fishing. After I retire, I'll do what I love.
Right.
Whereas pretty much I'm going to drop dead on stage one day. You know what I mean? I'm going to play until the day I die.
Yeah.
Or at least as long as I'm physically capable of playing, because that's why I play, because I love it, Yeah. And I'm very fortunate that I've managed to figure out a way to earn an income doing it. But
especially right now.
Yeah. I mean, and music, if you're going to pursue an occupation for financial gain, side guy independent musician should not be high on your list.
Right. Yeah. When you're doing those rock and roll camps for kids and they're saying, hey, I just want to be on TV playing drums for a national TV show, because that's what they see on TV, that's the hard conversation you're going to have, because how many of those gigs are out there? 2, maybe.
Right? I had a great, I've been doing some remote teaching, some remote lessons, which has been really cool. It's something that I've put off for the longest time because the technology can sometimes make it challenging, but in this day and age, I've sort of come to grips with the fact that this is what it's going to be for a little while. Right. So I've been doing some of those. And I had a student the other day named Jeremy. And I always tell guys, I say, hey, look, come with your questions, because that's what's going to help me in terms of knowing what to share, what information to disseminate. And one of his questions was, how do I become
disseminate? Disseminate? Ooh.
Oh, you got okay. Ooh. All right. You got me. Wait. information disseminate. No, you still got me by 3 syllables, man. You still got me by 3 syllables.
All right, forgive me. So Jeremy, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I love you so much, motherfucker. Sorry. So Jeremy's question to me. I hate you, Shawne. Okay, it's a wonder the way that we just like cackle and crack up. It's a wonder that we actually recorded anything and
it really
sit around
is
laughing the whole time.
But you got lots of laughter in there, which is important.
We did.
Yeah.
Jeremy asked me, "How do I become your replacement?"
Oh yeah,
that was his question to me.
How old is Jeremy?
Jeremy is in his mid-20s.
Oh, okay.
And it's an interesting question because no one's ever asked me that. This is to your point, Kevin, of people at a rock star camp or something of that nature saying, "How do I become a drummer on a TV show?" Right. And addressing that issue. And no one ever asked me that question that way. I have a lot of like, that was really a cool question. I was like, oh, I never really thought about it, and it gave me the opportunity to essentially say, here's the little timeline of what I did that led from point A to point The Voice.
The little timeline, yeah.
The
little timeline. Did you give every spot you were, in a van with Dale Bosio doing missing persons gigs and every like gig out in Temecula that was for
sure. I mean, well, yeah, I mean, those are experiences along the way that I think all of us have, right? Yeah. And they all lead you to the point where you are. So it's funny, I wouldn't take out the part of my life where I was lying on the top of the trailer being pulled by a van that was parked on the side of the road. So this is the trailer on the van. We're parked on the side of the road. I'm going to say it was maybe 10 or 11 o'clock at night. No, it would have been much later than that because it would have been after a gig. And we ran out of gas somewhere outside of Amarillo, Texas. Oh. And I'm lying, and we're in 2 separate vehicles, right? So the artist was in a vehicle, and then the band and crew were in this van pulling a trailer, of which that was me. I was in that vehicle, and we ran out of gas. And so the artist drove off to get gas and then come back with a gas can. And in the interim, I was lying on the roof of the trailer, just staring up at the stars in the middle of Texas.
Less snakes biting you there, right?
And but I guess my point is just that I'm kind of meandering, but the point is just that in that instance, it was definitely like what is going on right now? Like, how are you serious? I was not viewing it philosophically. Right. Whereas now, years removed from it, I do view it philosophically because I do realize that it's those kind of experiences that ultimately result in where you are. That journey that you take, to where you are is just as important. So
embracing it that way is important in order.
Kevin, what's the craziest thing that's ever happened to you on tour? Like, what's the oddest thing? Like, what's something? And Shawne, I'm coming to you next, by the way, with this.
No. This is great. This is awesome.
Thinking about the trailer thing, this is not probably the oddest thing, but I can tell you a memorable trailer moment that was pretty scary during the Rodney King riots. I grew up in Montana, right? So I was doing Northwest tours of cover band gigs, and we got through a very Caucasian part of Idaho. Our lead singer was African American. He was driving the bread truck that we had all of our PA and lights in. We got pulled over on the side of the desert, pretty much in southern Idaho, kind of like a lot of parts of Utah. Shawne,
is it near Pocatello then?
It was very near Pocatello. Yeah,
near Pocatello. Gotta love it.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the stuff you put on the toast. It's like the hazelnut chocolate sort of thing.
Yeah,
the green cheese, a classic.
Yeah, but no, they swerved. We had to have some contraband, so we were on our way racing to the gig. Right, like downbeat. It's 9 o'clock. We got to get there for load in, sound check. We're setting up PA and lights. It's going to take a while, but they make us take everything out onto the highway. Everything, the stacks, the lights, and it's 100 degrees, we're out there. We know by this time there's no way we're making sound check. We're probably not going to make downbeat. They take all of our IDs. They came in with a K9 unit and they brought, the drug dog starts barking. They find out like he burns himself on the metal on the truck or something. And we're all thinking there's something there, but they were using that as an excuse to hold us longer. So there was obviously a little bit of a racial bias issue happening because they took our singer, moved him in a different area, and then the rest of the band was kept in one spot. So we finished the investigation. They put us back in the van. They don't find anything. They send us on our way. When we get to the venue, an hour late, they have police waiting for us at the door. They said, we need to see your IDs. And so we give them our IDs, and our singer doesn't have his ID. When the cops pulled us over, they took his ID, didn't give it back. It was called, they called ahead, I'm sure, set it up. So we get there and they said, no, the guy can't come in here. If you don't have a driver's license, you're not coming in this place. And so we went in, we did it without a singer. We all split up the gig and had to do vocals ourselves. And I just remember that was my first real experience where I saw, and I didn't mean to get into racial inequality kind of thing, but it was during the riots that were all happening at the same time and in an area that was a little, sketch. But I had never seen anything like it.
Wow.
And, so while that's not like the craziest thing that ever happened, it was the first real eye opener for me that I thought, oh, wow, this is not everything is the same, So anyway, you want to lighten that mood up a little bit, Sean? And
how old were you? The riots, what year was that?
I think it was 90, 91.
The early 90s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yep. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. How about you, Sean?
Wow.
You have a happier story to lend?
Well, actually, I was writing a cookbook at one point, and I was using it as an excuse to write out a bunch of awful gig stories and then write recipes based upon those gig stories. So I have one that's the mother of all awful gig stories, but it takes too long to tell for this, I think.
Well, wait. And I'm Shawne, I love you so much, and I'm so sorry for interrupting you all the damn time. But again, Kevin, I just want to point out what he just said.
Yeah. I
was writing a cookbook.
Cookbook for gigs.
Oh, offhand he says that. Like, you know how everybody writes cookbooks. So I'm writing a cookbook. You see what I mean? Like, I'm loving this right now because I'm really getting to share with you, like, because this is like my experience living with Shawne, like in my life, and I tell these stories to people, and I think they don't believe me. I think sometimes they don't believe me, and so that just like that, how offhand he just said.
I know he does. It was so normal. I know. I didn't even think about it. So,
right. So I'm colliding electron particles in the backyard, and.
Actually, wait, Nate, you have to tell him the story. You have to tell him the story of the first time that I had you on a session.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. I will put a pin in that because I will tell it because I feel already bad that I've interrupted you. But finish your nonchalant. Oh, I'm writing a cookbook. Like
cookbook of bad gig stories.
As you do.
As you do. Well, what happened was I stopped being a musician for a long time, and I needed a place to put that energy. All of that stuff that you use to channel your id, so to speak. I needed something to do. So I started writing songs on piano because I didn't have to be good at that.
Okay.
And I started cooking because there were two things that I didn't have to be good at. It was totally cool if I sucked at those things. Cooking became a pretty hardcore obsession really quickly. Okay. So that's why the cookbook thing happened, because I was definitely turning into like, oh, okay, cool. I was making my own pasta, my own bread, my own ice cream, my own everything every week. Whatever. I had a shelf for Asian food, a shelf for Mexican food, a shelf for Indian food, kind of thing. So it's like, in terms of ingredients and all that kind of stuff. So that's why that happened. But I'm trying to think of the gig story. So I've had so many awful ones. Like I said, 290 gigs a year, all 5 setters. Oh, so that was 8. That was 8:30 till 1 Monday through Saturday, with usually a double on Saturday. And for a while, for about a year, I was keeping the session thing the same and only had 1 rig. Wow. And there's no cartage. So I would load the full rig. It was a 22 space rack and a bunch of guitars and cabinets into the club or into the studio on Monday morning. I'd do a 9 to noon and then a 1 to 5, and then load that same rig to the club to play 8:30 to 1 that night, and then load it back out to run the session the next day. So I got burnt on it really, really fast. But there was definitely a gig that ended up, it ruined 4 relationships. It featured fantastic things, like the guitar player, wanted to make sure. I was sitting in for a friend of mine, a guy that I knew, and he ran a band, wanted to make sure that, my sound fit in with his sound. Oh, so made sure that I used his gear. Right. So I swear to God, second tune, walked across the stage to grab a Diet Coke and stepped on the cable. Now, normally it's not a big deal. The guitar, the cable comes out, right? Yeah. Well, the jack was loose. So it pulled all of the guts out of his guitar. So I'm standing here with his custom guitar that he had built. And it's just it pulled all the wires out of the pickups. It completely destroyed it. I'm like, oh, and his wife was the lead singer. So I've just got death ray eyes now for her.
Then the bass player's amp blew up. Drummer, good or bad, depending how you think about it, Stuart, the drummer, his kick drum pedal died, but it was an electronic kit.
You say good or bad that it happened,
Luckily,
that the pedal broke?
No, meaning it was electronic kit. Luckily.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we had to program the floor tom to be the kick drum all night. So we had to play kick drum the rest of the night, because this all happened in the first set. It was awful. And then
everything happened that night?
That night, first set.
Oh, wow.
And then I decided, we were like 3.5 hours east in Duchesne County, Utah. And I'm like, screw this. I'm not staying in this town. I'm driving home. Everybody's like, well, okay, if you're going, I'm going to go. So everyone packed into the van, and then the van's battery died in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. on a 2-lane road with irrigation ditches, with no shoulder. So we had to leave the truck in the middle of the road with no lights on it or no anything.
Oh my God.
Hope it didn't get creamed by a semi. Drove into Duchesne or something to find a hotel. Literally, the guy swipes the card. Oh, by the way, the heat's not on yet. I mean, it was like literally, like we're all huddled in this little room at 3 a.m. There's no heat. Everyone's pissed off. The keyboard player calls his wife to come get him, and she's like, "No, I can't do that. Sorry, I've got a friend here." Apparently they had an open relationship, and so she had someone over that night and couldn't come pick him up. So it went on and on. It was.
Oh my God!
The universe kept saying, "Here, hold my beer."
Yeah, exactly, and everyone was pissed at me because I'd chosen to drive home as opposed to stay in there. Awful. I have a really bad problem with mildew. Like my nose is super strong. It's one of the reasons why I'm probably a decent cook.
Yeah.
My nose is super strong. So if I smell ammonia or anything organic like that stink, I can't handle it. And the room that they were staying in was just reeked of it. Like it was just someone had taken all the wet towels and put them on the carpet and then just closed the door for a week. It was awful.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. So.
You know that all of this is leading up to where Nate's at, though. You can see him stewing. He's excited about this one. So
no. Actually, I was thinking to myself, there's no way I'm going to try to follow that. I was actually thinking I'm not going to try to follow that at all. Most of my like memorable, once I was on tour and this happened, have to do with like mishaps. Have to do with me falling backwards off drum risers downstairs, or me bashing my head on the rim of a snare drum, or right before the last hit of a song, me catching a stick under my glasses and flinging my glasses across the venue. Like I've had that happen. But I can't touch that though. That's something.
In one night.
Yeah.
And I'm not making it up. It was literally, I started the night playing, because at that point I had like really long, awful dreads, like faux dreads.
Okay.
Because I had like curly hair, because I think I had a perm. And I just never combed through it, so it just became dreads.
Oh man!
So I played a jazz bow like gig that afternoon, and then drove straight to the pop gig. And the jazz bow gig was one of those things where the drummer, very nice fellow, but very used to playing stage stuff and not used to playing combo gigs.
Okay.
So he would play all the horn punches to like really famous tunes behind everything in a quartet.
With no horns, so he's playing on sax.
And the keyboard player was calling every old song like it was awful. So he called "Hello Dolly." So we're playing "Hello," drummer. So that's how it started, and then I drove straight to Duchesne and
man, that's like the worst Coen Brothers, like David Lynch, Quentin Tarantino movie all put in one.
It would be if you could shoot that like Barton Fink or something,
right?
Really stark, depressed, destroyed feel. It would be a perfect.
Oh, you know what, Sean? You just jinxed the hell out of your first gig at the Mint. I'm telling you, you guys are gonna walk in, and everybody that might hear this is gonna set up the room for you, so the floor is caving in, and like all of a sudden you'll find that there's been like a global pandemic. Oh wait, that's already happened. Shit. God, man.
I was driving the other day, and I was behind a van, and the van had 2 bumper stickers on it, and the first bumper sticker said, what did it say? I think it said, "Any sane adult 2020."
Yep.
And the other said, "Giant meteor 2020."
Yeah, man. At least we've got memes to kind of bring some kind of levity and humor to it all, but
Shawne asked me to tell the story of how he and I, of the first session that we ever did.
Yeah.
And I did want to share it. Because it's again another story of the genius of Shawne. So we met, however we met, like most couples. I never remember how we met. Shawne remembers exactly how it was, everything. So I always tell it wrong, and then he always corrects me. But we met however.
The recapitulation of the story is
yes. We met however we met, and very early in our relationship, Shawne said, "Oh, you know what? I mean, would you possibly come over to Steve Ferrone's studio and track drums for this tune I have to do for the NAMM show?"
Wow.
And I was like, "Sure," And this was maybe on like a Thursday.
Okay.
And Shawne was kind of like, can we do it on Saturday morning? And I'm like, yeah, Saturday morning, that's great. And I go, hey man, can you send me like a demo or something, or like maybe like an MP3 of what the song is? And Shawne's like, no. Yeah. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, well, I haven't written it yet. Oh, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. So literally I showed up Saturday morning and the tune is done. Like Shawne in a day's time wrote the tune, lyrics, melody, tracked everything, guitars, basses, all of it. If memory serves, there was like even like a little, like there was like a drum program, like loop thing and everything, and had recorded essentially the entire song in a day. Oh, wow. Whereas it did not exist, 24 hours earlier. So that was my introduction. That was kind of like that. And that was very early in our relationship. Like we weren't nearly as like tight then. We were still very much getting to know each other. And that was kind of when I went like, this mother is crazy. I was like, I can't believe he did this.
And it was because it was funny because Steve was there. So Ferrone's a pal.
Yeah.
So he was there, and he's back there puttering on stuff, watching Nate play.
Oh, really?
Like because it was like remember he had a Slingerland kit set up with real calfskin heads because he was doing this open thing. Remember he was in that trio with the DeLeo brothers. He had a band for a minute, and the DeLeo brothers were playing guitar and bass in this weird band that he had. Anyway, so he was setting up stuff for it, but he was actually watching Nate play, and it was funny. I don't think I know this. I don't think I knew that. Oh yeah, no, I vaguely recall him being there, but I recall him being somewhere like I was in the room tracking, and so basically it was just me in there. So I don't think I paid much attention to the fact that he would have been there. Yeah, he was like checking out. He was checking out what you were doing. He was. I think he was mumbling about how hard you were hitting things.
Oh, it's on his kit. He was a Pearl guy, wasn't he, Nate?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like that Steve Ferrone snare drum, that signature snare is like one of my favorite drums. And but so he's pissed that you're slaying on his Slingerland kit. And
no, Nate wasn't playing it. He wasn't playing it. It was set up behind it. So
gotcha. Yeah.
Steve's old studio was right next to the Sabian, because he's a Sabian guy too.
Okay.
So it was right next to the Sabian cymbals place. So they had the other half, and then he had the other half of the
okay.
But he's a sweetie and good pal of mine. He's a great guy. But it's just that was, and Nate killed it on that tune. Big and it had all sorts of weird little bits in it, and
Shawne, did that song ever get like quote unquote released? I mean, I obviously used it that go round at the NAMM show, but did you ever release that song? Did you ever put it on iTunes?
I've never released any vocal stuff.
Really?
So I have 600 or 1,000 tunes again. Never did. But
would you be mad? Would you be mad if I posted that song somewhere? If you don't want me to, I totally won't. But this is kind of a funny story, and it would be kind of neat because I would totally tell the story. And I would be like, here's
the turning point of this relationship right here. I could see.
No, because if you say no, I totally won't. Obviously.
The funny thing is that lyrically, it was a diss. The entire thing was a diss of a very prominent guy at the company.
Okay.
At the time, who's a friend of mine. It's not a big deal, but it was and the problem is that there's one lyrical thing where it's like your cat don't count, motherfucker, or something. Okay. There's some lyrical stuff in there that's not great, but as a tune, it's nice.
Is it because of it being directed at a person and then possibly picking up on that, or is it because of like naughty language or something?
Oh, it was lyrically.
Shawne is dancing. Shawne is dancing. Shawne is dancing.
Oh man!
So it's fine. It's fine. As long as people understand that it was done in a day, and that includes 6 or 8 background vocals and everything else and all that kind of stuff, and mixed in a day and all that kind of stuff. So it's
no,
not,
that's in all honesty, Shawne, I'm asking you, I'm like putting you on the spot, so I apologize for that. And if you don't want me to put it out, I totally won't. It's just, as I tell this story, it's dawning on me that I have told this story numerous times, and I've never gone, oh, but because like I'm like, yeah, man, and he wrote the song in a day, and he recorded everything in a day. It could suck. Like the song, if the song sucked, then none of that would be of value. But if I played it for a person and I went, yeah, my buddy wrote this and recorded everything in a day, they'd be like, what? So that's why I thought of it just now.
Well, you're welcome to if you want. It's there are some questionable lyrical choices.
Okay, well, I'm interested to know where this perfectionism comes from.
You know, now that's a really good question, because
yes, it is.
If Poptosis did anything, it broke a lot of that in me, which is really good. Yeah. Having one of the reasons why it took so long, like I fought, but Brian Lucy is the guy that mastered it, and he's the guy that did, like, you know, he does 10 #1 hits a year. Like he's wonderful, and he's a great guy, and he is wonderfully patient and everything. And I drove him nuts because I was in my car every day, and I'm like, okay, it needs to come down exactly half a dB at 12K because I can tell right now that this is where my teeth are. And I just drove him nuts, and he was like, dude, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where on the 11th hour, I think Nate remembers this, 11th hour, I called my friend Troy Glessner, who's another mastering engineer.
Yes.
In Seattle. And I said, I need you to send you this record. Something about it, it's just not working for me. I need to send it to you to check stuff. He goes, no problem. 1 a.m, he goes out to the studio. All right, send it to me. 20 minutes later, I'm just sitting there. Oh no. And he texts, and I'll get this text, and it said, what is your issue with this master? ? And I said, well, it's a little this, and it's a little spiky in places, and then the right symbol on the thing.
Oh my God.
And it's just this one letter. It says, you are smoking crack, period.
Yeah.
A wonderful master, period.
Oh.
I swear to God, it was like, you are smoking crack, period. This is a wonderful master, period. Put out the record you dig.
Right. Exactly. See, and that's
what a friend, man.
So Kevin, clearly Troy and I were on the same wavelength.
Yes. Yes.
Like not in the sense that I also thought it was great, but in the sense that Troy has known Shawne long enough to know that he's gonna like turn it over and over and over and over and over and over again.
That was worth it.
Shawne,
anyway.
I love you so much, dude. So I love Shawne. At one point in the old house where he lived, had the room set up a particular way, had recorded countless things that sounded great.
Yeah.
And one day just went, oh, there's a standing frequency at so-and-so, it's a kilohertz. No wonder. And completely tore everything apart and completely rebuilt the whole studio. Like in the middle of a project. Like what? Like completely turned the whole like desk and the monitoring thing somewhere else and the thing. And so yes. So that is why if one person hears Poptosis, or 1,000 people, or 10,000 people, it is symbolic, bigger than that. It has a much greater meaning in the world than that.
I put out tons of records for independent artists for a long time. So I did tons of female singer-songwriter records back in Utah in the 90s. And they came out all the time, like 4 or 5 records a year came out.
Sure.
You know, but they weren't mine.
Right.
It wasn't my name.
It's your baby.
I could jettison the responsibility. Okay, cool. I did the best I could. Whatever. So what's great about Poptosis is that a lot of that stuff has been ground out. I am no longer anywhere near as precious. I'm still precious. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It will take a few more to get completely where I'm, let it go. But I'm way better about it. Way.
Are you?
Totally way better.
Is it the rest?
Guys, hold on. Someone's knocking on my door. I'm so sorry. Excuse me.
I'm going to ask Shawne.
Yes.
Is the rest of the world like that for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have children?
No, don't have children.
I was just going to say, thank God.
Yeah. Don't have children.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh my.
Oh, so they can't hear you. Here.
We can hear
This is
you.
Julian.
We can hear him.
You say hi, Julian.
Hey, Julie, what's up? Hey, bud.
That's Kevin. That's Shawne.
What's happening?
And right now you're on live in the middle of an interview that we're doing.
You're so huge.
I can't believe it.
Huge. You're gargantuan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Man.
You ready to go? Are you ready to go? Bye-bye?
Bye-bye.
So yes, this is Julian. This is my 3-year-old.
Oh man.
And he came in to bring me an Uno card.
That is amazing.
What's that? Bring in what?
Julian said recapitulation.
All right, so he can go. See you, buddy.
Oh man, the reason I asked if you had children, because if it's really, really hard for you to let things go, I was going to say you're going to have a lot more gray hairs pretty soon.
That would grind it out of it. Yeah, I'm pretty serious about like if all the food comes out at the same time, it's restaurant-y, it's all a la minute, so it has to, like, something doesn't hit the plate and then something isn't ready for 20 minutes. That's not going to happen for me. I will freak the hell out. So yeah, I'm pretty, we've been painting the house and pretty anal about the cutting in.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. So yeah, there's an anal thing to it, but at the same time, I'm also, when I'm playing, not thinking at all, which is odd. So as a player, bizarrely enough, it's the exact opposite. So the sensibility probably helps, like it takes over. But I literally don't think as a musician, which is probably why it's one of the only good things. It's a bad thing because I'm not anywhere near as skilled as I should be if I actually thought or counted or any of that kind of stuff. But I'm not at all cognizant when playing. Unless I'm reading, maybe, whatever. But in general, it's pretty freeform.
But Shawne, I think that's the way to be, though. I mean, I talk to students all the time, and I basically say, when you're working on something, and I'm not sure, I kind of lost the plot because I was dealing with Julian for a second there, but when you're learning something, when you're working something out, by the way, I tease you about being precious, but there's validity to that. I mean, it means that by the time you actually do let something go, it's pretty amazing.
Right.
So there's, let me not, I tease you, I kid you, I'm a kidder, but believe me, I definitely value it. And I think it's amazing. And, so there's that. But I tell my students that when you're working on something, you want to think about everything. How precise is this? Where's this note landing? Do these notes land exactly together? Do they land exactly, in between one another? And in every way, you want to dissect and analyze and make sure that it's perfection. And all you're doing is thinking.
Right.
And when you play, the last thing you want to be doing is thinking about stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's the wisdom and sort of experience of putting those hours in, right? The 10,000 plus hours. But
right.
I think I hear the improvisational part of your record, in the Poptosis record, but it doesn't at all sound like you're fishing for ideas. And it doesn't seem like they're contrived in your thought, scripted or anything like that. I just think it just seems natural. It really feels organic and deliberate in the way that it ended up. And it's just so rare for me to hear a record like that. It's exciting. It is. And
I'm really glad that you like it. It's really cool. It's nice to hear.
But what's really funny, Shawne?
What?
Sorry, Kev. You know what's funny, Shawne? Every now and then, how you get like a melody stuck in your head and you just have something on your mind and you say, oh yeah, that's cool. That's cool too, man. Whatever. And so this morning I woke up and what was in my head was,
yes.
That harmonic.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, I was like, oh yeah, that's a cool tune. I should check that out. What is that? Oh yeah, that's the record that I did with Scott. Like literally the melodies from your, songwriting were actually in my head. And it was most of the time when I'm involved in something, I'm too close to it to really ever like it. Like the second that I realize it's me, or the second I realize that I played on it, I hate it. Right. Yeah. I think that's maybe that's a lot of us. Like, I don't know.
Normal.
I don't know. The majority of musicians that I know rarely listen to something that's them and go, dig me.
Yeah.
Dig me right there. Dig me. They're usually more like, or at least the way that I am is I'll hear something and I'll go, oh, okay. I mean, this drummer sounds pretty good. What? This is me? oh, this guy sucks. Oh
yeah,
God,
right.
I can't listen to this anymore. So that's the way I am about a lot of stuff, but not with this record. Like with this record, I can literally listen to it and go, that actually sounds really good.
It really, like honestly, sonically, it's incredible too, man. There's the subtle things, the tiny little ghost strokes, and the detail of the drum. You know, like
I told Shawne when we were recording this, we were all tickled because as much as we grew up with a variety of eclectic. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to like.
No, it's cool. But
commandeer. What you were gonna say something?
But then when I found out it was you, then I thought, no, I'm just kidding. No, go ahead. I had to go there. Sorry.
Not bad. Not bad. Okay.
I was going to say, so Shawne and I, as we've talked about at great length now, both come from a variety of like a very, very wide eclectic background.
Yeah.
We didn't grow up as like strictly fusion dudes. Like we
Right.
didn't grow up as like strictly like I'm playing the baked potato, watch me shred your face off,
Yeah.
you know, dudes. And so there are definitely points along the timeline of creating this record where we kind of looked at each other and we were just like, we kind of sound like those guys a little bit.
Yeah, we did. The first time we listened to
like
it, we were like, oh, we kind of almost sound like someone. but it's interesting, Kev. You mentioned the like little ghost strokes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The hardest thing about doing a record like this sonically is that you're playing the whole thing, but so we recorded it like a pop record, but like a jazz record, meaning we didn't change the drum kit for each section of a tune or something. Like if it was a pop record and I wanted Bonham drums for just the bridge, I might actually bring in a different kick drum, a different snare, go to a different room, all that kind of stuff. So we didn't do that. It's literally one drum kit from the beginning to the end. And sometimes by the end of it, we're beating the snot out of everything. And for the middle part, it's little pittery pattery things and tiddly ting tings and piddly poo poos and that kind of stuff. And then by the end of it, trying to mix it was interesting because it was like I knew that I still wanted articulation here, I wanted articulation there, I needed a big kick and a big snare, but I also needed to hear the ghost strokes, I needed to hear all the ride stuff. So it was definitely a lot of chasing Nate around.
I'll bet.
Because it was just sort of like, all right, cool, now everything has to feel smaller. Now everything has to feel bigger. And I have to figure out how to do that architecturally in the mix. So it was challenging, but I enjoyed it.
Well, good kind of work to put the time in.
Totally.
And I would bet since you were doing all of that mixing that you got to even know idiosyncrasies about Nate that you didn't already know, right? I mean, even though you guys you've known each other for 15 years, and you've heard him play those parts as you were laying them down. But then when you got to dig in deep and really hear, wow, that was an interesting choice for the ride pattern there. Or was there a lot of that?
I know him very, at this point, I've recorded Nate so much that I can tell you that the low tom is almost always hit lightly at the end of the
quieter.
So he almost always goes,
oh.
However, if he hits the low tom alone, it'll be big.
Yeah.
But it's funny. It's like we all have these little idiosyncrasies about things. What's great though is that after all that click time in the studio and stuff like that, and not playing live for years, like I stopped playing live for 10, 12 years, whatever. So it was only the click. And it's really funny for me now, Pocket is like a rubber band. And you've got this thing where it's like, if it's a funk groove, you know, it's elastic and it rejoins itself wherever that beat is. So it's where you got just the, you know, whatever. And so for me, it's like, if it feels good and the pocket's killing, then it's so much easier to do anything that I want to do. And with Nate, that's never a problem.
Right.
And one of the cool things I think about us is that we do feel things in a similar place, even though we came up in different parts of the country and had completely different backgrounds, both family and ethnic and all sorts of other stuff. We listened to enough of the same kinds of music and arrived at the same sorts of opinions about that music that we feel the beat in a very similar place.
Yeah, you're speaking the same language.
Yeah, totally. And it almost doesn't matter if it's a rock tune or a country tune or whatever. We have a pretty good communal sense of where time is and how short the space between like little sort of like ghost notes are and things like that. So it's fairly, I think at the end of, what's the tune that Bob plays on? Is that
say it again?
Sad Bastard Music, right? Sad People Music. That's the one that Bob plays on. We sort of got to the end of it and Nate was like, you played a lot of stuff with me, bro. We might have to learn all that stuff when we play live because it sort of seems like, and I'm like, I didn't even mean to. It just sort of felt like that's where that phrase was going to end up. But, so it sort of did. But we definitely have a very sort of communal sense of time. And we can sort of get off on the rails and stuff. I think we used to play this church gig together and they stopped booking us together.
Really? It was just too good.
I don't know if it wasn't too good, but it was sort of like the potential for fun things to happen was far greater if we were there together.
So the congregation's just waiting for the next songs you guys are playing. They're not even paying attention to the message.
It's like, hey, that was really cool. Let's do this again.
Yeah.
We're supposed to gesticulate towards the Almighty.
How are you guys going to pull that off live? When I listened to the record, Nate mentioned, I mean, there's not an instrument really that you can't play, and
that's not true at all.
Well, I was
think
great.
Drums is the only instrument that Shawne doesn't play.
Right.
And I've made sure to prevent him from ever gaining access to any drums. Otherwise he'll have no need for me anymore at all.
Right.
I have the same, I probably want to be Garibaldi so bad.
Yeah.
Right. When I sit down at a drum kit, and invariably it's that same drum groove that every guitar player does. Boom, boom, cat, boom, cat. It's the same. It's awful.
Which Nate actually does a great impersonation of a guitarist as a drummer too. I've seen him do that. Playing that beat right there. But you mentioned Garibaldi. Actually, when you were talking about some of the references too, there's some Dixie Dregs vibe in some of this record too.
I listen to a lot of Steve Morse.
I was gonna say, man, and I don't hear direct, inference to any of that stuff. It feels like a modern day, sort of interpretation of what a Dregs record might have on it, but
my way of thinking about learning phrases was always about taking a snippet and regurgitating it thousands of times as opposed to learning a whole solo. So I'm never the guy that I've only learned one solo or one tune note for note for my whole life, and that's Comfortably Numb.
Oh, really?
The 2 solos are perfect, right?
Yeah.
But otherwise, it was always like a little snippet. Like I'd figure out what the chord was, and then I'd figure out one little Coltrane line, and then I'd regurgitate it and try to figure out how to do it. So as a result, I don't have I do a good job of imitating someone if I need to on purpose for sessions. Like that was always one of the things that really served me well in sessions.
Sure.
But I don't necessarily do that. I don't find it easy to do that when I'm thinking about something for myself.
That's interesting, Shawne, because sorry, Kev, I just want to. That's interesting, Shawne, that you say that, because drumming wise, I have a similar approach in the sense that if I'm playing a song and we played so many of them, both you and I together, and then of course me on this show and all of that, I'm going more for the emotion of what the drum fill is as opposed to note for note what it actually was played on the record. I had a friend call and ask me once. She was going to be auditioning for a band, and she played me a particular fill and was like, "What is that? What are they doing there? What are they doing there?" And I was like, "I don't know, but here's what the vibe is."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is what the emotion is, and I think partly, if I'm honest, I'll be honest, that's a little bit of laziness. That's a little bit of me not wanting to pull out the manuscript paper and sit there and be like, "Okay, what is it? Okay, and doing that, it's a little laziness." But there's also an extent where it's why, if I do say so myself, I don't think I sound like anyone. You know what I mean? And it's because I've never dissected anyone specifically enough to sound like anyone.
If it was ever an issue, right, then it may have changed you. But if like Merkovich ever said, "Hey, Nate, I really, really need a Garibaldi vibe there," I'm not hearing the Myron Grombacher, feel in the Penachar song that you're doing, but that's never been an issue because you get the emotion out of it. You infer the part, you're going to get, and I think,
that's not to say that there aren't signature parts of songs, right? That's not to say that when you play a certain thing. So for example, if we play a Phil Collins song and he plays a signature lick in the other night or whatever it is, I'm like, okay, I need to know what that Phil is right there because it's signature, but it doesn't mean that I've studied everything Phil Collins has ever tracked and have transcribed it. Right. And now when I sit down to play the drums, I sound like Phil Collins.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I would imagine as an educator now too, that helps so much, man. You can communicate that message to up and coming drummers to help them find their own voice. It's a really important thing. I mean, it's great to put on records and just hammer on, learning styles. It's great, maybe for like stylistic reference more than, a particular drummer reference, so you don't want to sound just like Weckl. You can put on all sorts of records and love chops that he's got, and maybe he has different feel and guys that are known for their particular approach, like somebody that has a really unique ride pattern. I was always thinking like Danny Gottlieb was one of those jazz cats that I dug, whose ride patterns and the feel of his ride cymbal was so unique and different. And so if you're gonna play with that kind of thing, you can kind of emulate without trying to sound just like Danny Gottlieb, right?
I went to school. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking about one of the notable gigs you had early on. We talked about the missing persons thing. You started playing with Dale, and you were playing somebody that had a signature brand. I mean, Terry Bozzio has as signature a brand in terms of his style and the way that he plays as anybody, right? And so when you did those songs, you weren't out there with a whole shitload of rototoms and you were, like trying to play Terry Bozzio. And I would bet Dale didn't ever ask you to. I would bet that as long as you played, oh my God, I have to, and this ties into a story for you. And I got to tell you, as long as you played those signature parts, you had the fills that were notable, right? Then it made the songs feel right. Now, I will say, on tour last year, we were out with Missing Persons was on the tour with us. Andy Sinise on drums, your pal, and we were.
And you were touring with Flock of Seagulls.
Oh, the Flock of Seagulls, yep.
Yes,
and
yes.
There were a handful of gigs that they didn't have a drummer set up. Right? They had, typically, oh my gosh, why can't I think of his name? From the Knack, Preston Niles, the Prescott Niles.
Oh yeah, Preston Niles.
And Prescott's kid plays all the gigs that Andy Sinise cannot for Missing Persons.
Yes.
But this happened to be a gig that Andy was off doing his normal gig. Prescott and his kid couldn't do the gig, so they had Missing Persons had no bass player, no drums, and they had asked me to do it. Because I played with her before, but when I'm with the Flock of Seagulls, it doesn't look right for me to be playing multiple bands. He doesn't want us to have the hired gun look on stage with his gig. I get it. So I told Dale I couldn't do it. So she did a couple of gigs with no drummer. So they on the Casio drum machine, on the keyboard, and they played entire sets, a couple of them in a row with no drummer. Now, Missing Persons, you have to have a drummer. It just has to happen. And it was really tough to see. Poor Andy, though. We played Humphreys in San Diego last year on tour. Shot most of this, Destination Unknown on Facebook Live. And those songs are special to me. Everybody grew up with Spring Session M. It's a great record. And the night was just perfect. We're out there against the water. And I'm shooting video of Dale and Andy and the guys playing this tune. And there's a guy at Humphreys. The front seats are really expensive, man. It's not a huge capacity venue, and those front seats are $400 or $500 to get these front two rows. And there's a guy in the second row with his wife or girlfriend. He's cussing at him, and he's pissed, and he's playing air drum and everything that Andy's doing, and he's like the Bozzio fills, but Andy didn't play them just like Terry. And the guy's like, "Fuck you! I'm gonna kill you!" And he's like yelling and screaming at him. And I'm shooting Facebook Live, laughing so hard I can't hold my phone steady. And his wife or girlfriend's trying to pull him back out of the front row because he's leaning over the people in the front row, trying to get at Andy, screaming and like acting like. And I was like, "Oh my God, he's gonna have an aneurysm." He blew his whole night. This poor guy who's supposed to be there having fun with these 80s shows, and I couldn't help but laugh at him, which was making him more mad, right? And thank God Andy didn't notice while he's doing it, but I showed him the video later. But my feed is blowing up, right? I'm showing the Facebook Live to everybody and showing off, here's Dale doing the song, but then I had to keep panning over to this rabid dog, this guy that's just losing his shit. And of course, Flock of Seagulls had to come on right after Missing Persons, right? So I'm like, oh man, this guy's going to be so spun up. If I'm not playing everything exactly like the original Flock drummer, I'm in so much trouble. I'm going to be like, but thankfully, he was a Bozzio fan. He wasn't an Ali Score, a Flock of Seagulls fan. So by this point, I think either his, thing kicked in or his wife, told him, "Hey, stop, police will come." But oh my God, it's crazy.
I had a similar incident one night at the Rhino Room. I think that's what it was called. The Rhino Room in Huntington Beach.
Playing with Dale,
where I had a similar run-in with a very vehement Terry Bozzio fan, which I'll tell you later off the air.
Yeah.
But
it's somebody we know.
No,
Oh.
no. It's a story that so similarly mirrors the story you just told that it would be redundant. But at no point when Dale called me to do that gig, at no point did the thought ever cross my mind, I'm going to transcribe and play spot on, note for note, everything that Terry Bozzio played. Because, I mean, to my way of thinking, obviously you want to, I mean, you're talking to a guy who plays a lot of covers, right? I'm in like maybe the, most visible cover band, on the planet. But you want to respect the original recording.
Right.
But at the same time, in that instance, if I went and tried to do that, what am I going to be? Like the second best Terry Bozzio out there? Like,
right. Yeah.
Why? There's already one of those, right?
Right.
So yeah, at no point did that thought ever cross my mind. At no point did that. I basically went for the emotion of the song. And where there are signature things where you're going do 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 that do 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 got down bing bing bing. Sure, okay, you got to nail those things.
Yeah.
But I remember I did a gig with Dale not too long ago. By the way, this is a total random story. And I do bring, in terms of just doing a gig, I do bring a little bit larger kit to that gig. I don't go and try to do that gig on a 4-piece kit with a ride and a crash.
Yeah.
So I've got my kick, and I've got 2 toms up, 2 toms down, one on this side, an auxiliary snare drum, and a bevy of cymbals and some things that are trash can lids and some things that go ding. And the drummer playing in the band that played before us looks at the rig and he goes, "Oh, so you brought the jazz rig."
Oh.
I thought that was great. I thought that was so funny.
I played a big band gig in college. And the guy, the normal drummer wasn't there, and he got a friend of his or something to do it, and he showed up with a hi-hat, a ride, and a double bass kit.
Oh yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, like proper Neil Peart.
Yeah.
Like it's just obvious that this was going to be awful, and it was proper awful.
Now I was hoping for a happy ending. I was hoping it was like, and it turns out he was a huge Louis Belson fan.
Right.
And he nailed it. Like that's what I was hoping.
Louis can play Ride on the Hat, and it works. It's Ringo, but way cooler. He can do that. But a lot of people can't.
That's true. That the surprise. Talking to our pal Kenny Aronoff the other day about that "Burning for Buddy" tribute that Neil Peart put together, right? And that was like a pivotal moment for him because he was Rush. That was it, right? So he wanted to break out of that. He wanted to pay homage to Buddy, and so he had the Buddy Rich Big Band. Remember that? And he had all those all-star, cats.
Those were videos. Those videos were on constant rotation in the guitar store I worked in.
Yeah,
I've seen them all.
And it's what a surprise for so many of them, right? To see like Matt Sorum get up there and swing his ass off. And of course, Bissonette slayed this stuff that he did. And Aronoff, honestly, Straight No Chaser was such a surprise to me, to see him swinging so hard.
Dennis though.
Oh yeah. And unfortunately, Neil realized that he was the odd man out. The dude couldn't swing, and that was the changer for him, right? He sat down with, Vivek, what was his name? Murray? Who was the guy, the New York guy that he studied with for a while? Yeah, Freddie Gruber.
Freddie Gruber, that's right.
Yeah, and he retrained himself how to play, which is cool and very humbling, right? Because he realized I put this whole thing together and it kind of backfired, and now I look like an asshole.
I heard Neil play Time at the Sabian thing when I was at Ferroni's once, and I heard it through the wall, and I thought, that sounds really good. I don't know who that is, but it sounds really good. And I've got friends that are huge Rush fans, and they're amazing people. I mean, they're the sweetest guys. But it was never I was never a huge Rush fan.
Sure.
And I think partially because it didn't have all the eighth notes or the 16th notes were so sharp.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel funky enough, you know what I mean? But great songs and
yeah.
But I walked across and it was actually Neil, and he was playing traditional grip. And he was just playing Time, and it was way rounder than I'd ever heard him play.
Yes. So that was after that phase. Yeah. Right. Where he really, what a really cool thing to have to completely change your identity.
Yeah.
And of course, he went through so much stuff with his life too, that story is, if you're, life is changing for you. So if you can adapt and make it change for you, I guess it's sort of, it's sort of a metaphoric thing for what's happening right now. I mean, right. You guys have had to adapt and shift with whatever you're doing. I'm not just missing the gig at the Mint, but with the pandemic, an opportunity for anybody to find and thrive in their passion and not sort of freak out and lose their shit. I talked to so many friends of mine on this show that their industry went away, right? It's not just like, gigs were canceled for the summer. We've all known those kinds of scenarios, right? Where you had, the next 6 months planned out, and then for some reason, musically, it disappeared. But universally, the industry disappeared. And so you can either choose to pivot and find something to do to put your creative energy into, or you can be a victim and just let it kick your ass, and I'm concerned now for a lot of my friends that I'm seeing their asses being kicked, and people that are normally so grounded. And so I love the escape of this avenue, this mechanism here on the show, to let people just talk that stuff out, have some kind of social connection, because I think people get caught up in their head too much, man. They just watch way too much news, and they just, a lot of the stuff that they can't let go and they can't have any control over, the stuff that I was talking about with you, Shawne. And I don't know you, but understanding that the things that are outside your control are maddening so much. Right. And it's so tough to just be able to let that baby go. The Poptosis record, the fact that you did it, it really is it was probably a real healing moment for you,
It totally was. It totally was. Because half of my life is about, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like if I don't pre-grieve, like I talk about, I use the term pre-grieving for what my wife and a lot of her family do, which is, I've got this event coming up in 2 months and I'm just going to worry about it until it happens.
Pre-grieve. Oh my God.
Right? Pre-grieve. And it's like, I'm going to worry about it and all the contingencies and the crazy territorial things that could possibly happen. I'm going to live through each one of those before we get there.
Okay.
And my opinion is like, fuck it, I'll figure it out when we get there. So bizarrely, part of me is this highly improvisational person. And the other half, when it comes down to me or something that I produce, I'm far more in control of. So you're right. The Poptosis was a really good thing to sort of try to take some of that part of my life, which is very improvisational and free and organic, and I don't fucking care, and move it a bit more into the musical part, which is great.
Besides the cookbook, I want to read your other writings, because I would think, man, I would. Do you write any fiction or?
It's funny. I did for a while. When I was in college, I wrote quite a bit because I'm still reading at that point. That sounds awful to say.
I know,
but no, I wrote quite a bit. But no, I used lyrics for that. So I definitely, I'm a vocalist and write pop songs and feel pretty strongly about. I mean, I'm a writer for work as well, so I'm a marketing guy. But obviously, a lot of what I do is about writing and video editing and all that kind of stuff. And there's pocket in all that. There's pocket in video editing. There's pocket in writing. There's rhythm in any of these things. And so I've always been really into it. So yeah, my lyric writing I'm really into, and it's it always I sweat over it. So yeah. But I there will be a vocal record out at some point.
I would love to hear that. And even if I was just reading your cookbook, I think I can get a lot out of it, not just for the culinary side of things, but I would think that it's more creative than most.
Well, they're funny stories, because I've had some awful ass gigs. So they're pretty funny stories. But you can't play, 290 gigs a year in Utah in the mid-90s in mainly country music.
Right.
So this was mostly country stuff. So this is Garth Brooks era, the crazy shirt era, where every country club is basically a venereal disease petri dish.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's
you earned your stripes.
Totally, dude.
You did. Oh my God, man.
Boots, vest. Never did the belt buckle thing, but I had the mullet. Oh, totally. Oh yeah.
I just got a new mullet. Actually, I'm working on it right now. It looks short at the sides, but yeah, it was intentional. It's coming back. Yeah. I don't own boots anymore, but Nate, do you remember the Neil Peart lyric conversation we had with my son?
Refresh my memory.
Okay. Shawne, my son, I have a 21-year-old son, is a wicked drummer. Neil Peart was God to him, right? Rush was all he listened to. Nate knows this about him. So we went in to watch Nate do some of the tracking at the Henson Studios, right? The A&M Studios. And I'm just fascinated by the whole process, watching the assembly line, the quick machine that they were doing those tracks. And I'm just, I couldn't believe it, right? And Caleb's on Instagram, he's bored. And I was thinking, man, if you had any idea how magical this experience right here. But, Nate was playing, Colby Collet songs and not playing Peart stuff. So he digs Nate and he wanted to watch Nate play. But if Nate's not shredding, right, then it was boring to him at that point. So engineer says something about Rush. Caleb said, yeah, that's all I listen to. Nate comes in the room and he goes, hey, so yeah, you're a big Rush fan. And Caleb said, yeah, that's all there is. He goes, that's all there is. And he said, yeah, Neil Peart, he's God. That's it. And Nate said, you ever heard of a guy named Vinnie Colaiuta? And he goes, yeah, man, my dad has been talking about him forever. And Nate's like, well, there's a reason for that. And
yeah, exactly.
All right. So we go out in the car. Nate takes us out into his little Subi. We're listening to Nate's iPod, a lot of obscure Vinnie songs that I've never heard before.
We're listening to the live Charisma record.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was going to say it's that Charisma record where he displaces the snare and then everyone just wants to die.
That's it. Yeah. And
brilliant.
And Nate's asking him, all right, what time signature is this in? And he's quizzing my kid, right? And then afterwards, kid was, yeah, he's an awesome drummer, but let me hear his lyrics. I'm like, and that's his connection with Rush.
Right.
I am so guilty of lyrics being so secondary that to this day, I'll turn 50 this year. I'm now just starting to recognize and listen to lyrics. I'm embarrassed to say it, man, but melodies are always what it's gotten me, right? Yep. And so and really, I mean, my musician friends are just disgusted by, my superficiality, but it just never something that I got into. And then I listened to truly gifted writers that have phenomenal songwriting. And I'm thinking, wow, I really have a completely new world of music open up to me, right? The stuff that I'm excited about it. And I was proud that my kid opened myself up to that. My youngest son's 18. From 10 on, he was a hardcore Beatles fan. I didn't raise him as a Beatles fan. I was, I raised my kids on butt rock, man. That's just what we listened to. And neither kid resonated with that at all. My 10-year-old, he knew so much about the obscure Beatles stuff. Awesome. That was great. And, we went to Liverpool a couple of years ago and he knew where everything was. He knew the stories of, distant relatives. And it really blew my mind how much the education part of this was. It was really special for me, right? I felt like such a late bloomer and I felt so ignorant about having really overlooked that part of my life. Well, thank God my youngest kid is like, he's really hip to it. And so thank you, son. Now he's 18 and, both of my kids save certain records. My oldest will save a Rush record because he wants to have something new to come to at some point. So, he'll just really get into one era and then he'll leave a couple of them because he doesn't want to ruin it by just obsessing about all the material. And my youngest too, he pretty much is just, burned out the Beatles catalog, but there's some stuff that he said, it's not that I don't like it, but I had to move over to the independent artist, the solo artist stuff, because I wanted to be able to have something to come back to, and it's really neat as I guess as a music appreciator, but also as a dad to know that our kids are that connected to music. Nate, I mean, you've got 103 kids. And so each one of them has their own interests. Are they, man, one thing I just hadn't known really, I mean, Miles, I got to know, early on, but are any of them so inspired by you and your focus on music that they feel like I want to do what dad does?
What?
Yeah.
What? You're a dad? You have kids? Are you kidding me?
Well, no. I mean, they don't want to.
Your kids are never impressed by what you do.
No, okay, but do they?
In my experience, my kids are never impressed by what I do. It's just what I do.
Yeah.
If I can quote Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, And I think he once famously said, your kid will never think that you're a rock star.
Yeah.
And that's coming from Steven Tyler.
That's true.
So yeah, no, my experience has not been that. Now, I've been able to at times influence them a little bit in certain things to listen to, but no.
Are they getting the stuff that you just shake your head and you're just like, oh my God, no?
No, I mean, I have kids. No, I have sort of a wide range.
Yeah.
And the ones who are at the upper end of the age spectrum, which are 20, 18, and 14, they have their things that they're into. My 14-year-old is a tennis player. My 18-year-old is super into politics, wants to study politics and history. My 20-year-old is in college as a poli-sci major and is on his speech and debate team, right? Wow. So they're doing their thing. And then the littles, which are my 8-year-old, 5-year-old, and 3-year-old who you just met a second ago, they're not really there yet. Like they're not really, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, no, it's fun though having that wider range. It's kind of funny.
You didn't tell the Wiggles story right there, which was great. So yeah.
Well, the Wiggles are far more popular in my house than I am.
Yeah.
And
you had the hookup, right, to go meet him.
Sure, I had a student, Noel Harity, and he came to the house at one point, and he is a percussionist who plays with the Wiggles. And so yeah, they had a meet and greet. Stuttering. They did a show, there we go, at UCLA, and I got to go and hang out and brought the kids. And that day, that one moment, I was cool because I had an in to meet the Wiggles.
Isn't that so
every
sad?
other day, no, not so much. The Wiggles are huge. It's actually kind of surprising that they're not bigger here, but they're
Australian.
Huge.
They're Australian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is close to Nicole, right? So. Man, I just realized when Nate asked me about, coming back, because I've been really excited to talk Fraud Prophets. Nate and I will get on these tangents, and I know that you know the same thing I'm talking about, Shawne. You'll talk for like 6 hours, and you'll realize it felt like 2 minutes. And Nate was saying, so we do this like an hour, is that right? And I said, well, we could try to keep it to an hour, but
not if you and I are on the same call. Sorry.
Yeah, no, yes. And I'm the same thing. And last night, Glenn called me last night because he's been seeing all this stuff going on in Portland, and he wanted to know, is it really as bad downtown as it is? And he said, I just have like 5 minutes. I got to go get my mom. And so 2 hours later, his mom's called twice saying, are you still coming over? It's like midnight. And I guess I treasure the moments where we can have this kind of hang.
Sure.
But the special thing is I got to know more about Sean Halley, that Nate's been talking about you forever, man. But I'm fascinated by you. I really am, man. It's beyond Fraud Prophets. I finally get the genius reference. And I really love your willingness to sort of acknowledge the type A.
Yeah. I mean, it's good and it's bad.
Well, sure.
It's like, and it's all part of, there's a tune on the pop record that I tracked 10 years ago that I'm probably going to finally finish here soon. That is all about, I would give everything that I know, and I'd untie the wires that bind my soul if I could just let go. You know what I mean? It's the whole idea of being able to release. But I also realized that would make you somebody else, and that wouldn't be good either. So it's you are what the conflagration of all of the weirdness.
Conflagration. There it is.
Good and the bad, and we are an amalgam of everything that we are, and that's what makes us who we are. And so I could change all sorts of things about myself, and my wife would prefer it if I did.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say your wife must be a saint, though.
Dude, she's awesome.
Yeah,
she's amazing. She really is. But it's like I try to do things. I try to do the toilet paper in the same way that she prefer it, and I fold clothes differently now that we've been together, and all sorts of things. Like I am growing, changing.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, I'm still going to be the annoying guy that I am.
I love it, man. There's got to be a sitcom out there written for you. It really, I think. Well, please do put that song out. I'd love to hear it. You're setting it up. And Nate, you're going to be releasing this other tune that you guys collaborated on together.
Well, I have a feeling that Sean's going to yell at me when we get off. He's going to be like, why did you say you were going to put that song out? Now, if you don't put it out, people are going to do it. And I didn't. So
I haven't heard it so long. As long as it sounds all right. I know it's going to sound thin and small.
See, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
But hey,
so I'll go, hey, Sean, do you mind if I put it up? you know what? Sure. What I'll do? Why don't you let me just do a quick remix of it? Okay, cool. And then like 5 years later,
Yeah.
I'm almost done. I'm almost done remixing it.
And then Nate, your answer can be, why don't you send it off to your mastering buddy and see what he thinks?
Hey, right? Hey, you know what's funny though, Shawne?
Troy.
Just on the sad note, because you said I know it's going to sound thin and small, and it's like, and this is a sad note. Everyone listens to everything on earbuds now.
I know.
It's so sad. Like the necessity for something like sonically. Uh-oh, I lost you.
It's Animal.
I went away. I lost you on my little thing. How do I get this to go away?
No, we're just gonna look at you and Animal. This is good.
Did you mute your camera?
No, I touched my screen accidentally, and now I have to find noob. This is like why I shouldn't be allowed to technology.
There he is.
Oh, there I am.
Yes.
But anyway, yes. I was just pondering that the other day. It's like everything video-wise is getting better. Like TVs are getting sharper, more colors, more resolution, 4K, 8K, and music is like going like the priority of it sounding good is going lower and lower.
We'll just add low end to whatever you're going to put out, Shawne, and get this track out because I want to hear it. I'm excited to at least help, drive people towards the Fraud Prophets record and have them get Poptosis. But I think, I would just love for people to know more of this evolution of this friendship. This relationship that you guys have is really pretty impressive. I'm excited to get to know you, Shawne.
He is one of my favorite people. And it is funny. I know that we can go months sometimes. We're really busy without talking. I haven't seen anyone since January anyway at this point, but we haven't seen each other in a long time. But it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It won't ever matter. It'll always be like, cool, we'll just pick up where we were, and that's just the way it is, which is wonderful. It's one of my favorite things about it.
Yeah, Nate has the gift. That really is true, man. That every single person you talk to that knows Nate says the exact same thing like that.
He's a pain in the butt. That's what they say. They say that Nate guy.
No, I haven't talked to your wife in a while, but
exactly.
Listen, guys, I want to thank you, man. I really do, Shawne. It's awesome to get to meet you in person.
Well,
Nate, dude.
Hey, man.
Thank you for the shot in the arm. I needed it. I hope, I hope you guys enjoyed a couple of hours of non-weed pulling. And I had a pal, Mike Klaus, who was laughing. He's like, "You can't make this shit up," on the chat here. So, yeah, I laughed harder, I think, than I have in months, and I totally needed it. So for me, it was a selfish thing. And as much a fan of you guys as I am of the music, so thank you for the time. I hope that you guys stay healthy. And Nate, I'm glad that you're working, man. It's good to see. Next time we talk, you're gonna go behind a kit. You're gonna show off a little bit of that gear because all the drum heads want to see that stuff, So, but not this time. And this time, you're gonna go have some dinner with Julian. So, give my best to the family.
Actually, I'm off to procure chairs for our classroom because my wife has converted one of the rooms in our house into a classroom. And
really?
So at this exact moment, I've been glancing up at the clock because I have to go and get chairs by a certain time. There's a mad scramble for web cameras, headsets, chairs, desks, any kind of school supplies.
Sure.
So she has located a couple of chairs. So that's my next objective today.
Man, the honeydew list doesn't end, right? You guys are just going for it. Hopefully you can put away the weed pulling tools for the night, Shawne, and just enjoy your evening. Thank you guys so much for being here. And again,
all right, man.
Five Star Guitars. Have a beautiful weekend, gents, and I hope to get to see you soon.
Absolutely.
Right on.
Thanks, Shawne. Nice to meet you. Take care.
See you guys.
See you guys.
Cheers.
Nady, I love you.
Yeah, love you, buddy. So I will say, are you done now? Are you officially off?
Nope, we're live still.
We're still live because I was gonna say when you're talking about lyrics, I'll just go ahead and expose this bad thing about me. When you're just like, yeah, and I discovered lyrics and I'm listening and there's a whole new world. I'm so bad about that. Like when I'm playing songs, sometimes I'll be working with an artist and they'll be like, hey, right at that point where I say, and the sky is dark tonight, and I'm like, I don't know where that is. What? What are you talking about? I have no idea what you're saying. I have no idea what the lyrics of the song are. And so I was sort of chuckling to myself while you were saying that. So, so to everyone out there, Kevin is better than me because he actually listens to the lyrics of all the songs.
I still don't.
And I don't.
It's 1 in 10. but the things I noticed are that the songs that really meant a lot to me in high school as I grew up were so sappy and silly. And, so when I listen to those lyrics, I'm kind of embarrassed that I spent that much time, but nah, that's all right. The hooks were so good,
Here's the last thing I'll say on lyrics. Go back and listen to some Stevie Wonder stuff. Like if you want to hear some lyrics and you want to talk about like fitting some like 5-syllable words into lyrics and you're not even noticing because it's so brilliant. So like Stevie Wonder, I listen to the lyrics.
Okay. I'll do it, man. That seems a little bit more.
Katy Perry, less so.
Well, I just listened to a great interview with Ice-T talking about where he gets his stuff. And it was funny. Do you listen to Mark Maron at all?
I'm familiar with Mark Maron. I don't know his material intimately, but I have a vague recollection that he started off by doing like a podcast that became very, very popular. Yes. And now he's sort of blossomed that into a stand-up comedy situation. Yeah.
But his interview a couple of days ago with Ice-T is phenomenal.
Yeah.
He talks a little bit about lyrics, but a lot about his influence from the hood, but he was more hard rock guy. So even though all the other guys that were into, James Brown, he was more Black Sabbath, and he combined his vibe.
Right.
They're knocking. They're saying, "Dad."
I thought I heard a knock at the door.
Yeah.
I thought I heard a knock at the door, but I could be wrong.
No,
but I will let you go. Kevin, and congratulations on all your success, by the way. Like you went from being like, here's me at a desk with like a microphone to like the TV production, like a new mic and like sponsors and all of it. So congrats to all of you for all of that.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
So yes, I think someone is knocking on my door though. So
I think
that
tell them it's me.
School chairs are awaiting my picking up.
I love it.
So
thank you, pal. Have a great day, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
See you, Kev.